So first of all, thanks a lot, Jasneet, for coming here and helping the community out there. So in this video, we are going to talk about how to actually go about masters in Canada and how is the software engineering industry in Canada. So let's first start with the introduction of Jasneet. Although I know that who does not know Jasneet beforehand, but just for the sake of it, let's do the introduction.
Oh well, like there are a lot of people who don't know because like I have been out of the
Well,
scene from like it's been like 2 years. I haven't put out content in like with that
mhm,
flow. But anyhow, to be very honest, I am a developer and a growth hacker. So like, well, both of these terms don't go hand by hand. But the thing is that I tend to do stuff in a horizontal manner. So I try out different things and then glue them together and build out products as well. But anyhow, I have an alter ego on Instagram named as Innovative Coder, and a lot of people know me by this name. And you can like even Google me and know stuff about me. But like in one line, I'm a T-shaped developer and a growth hacker. I build products, I distribute it to multitudes, and help companies grow them as well. And right now, I'm in Canada. I've moved my base from India to Canada. I'm doing masters in Concordia University in information security, and would love to talk about that as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
guys, let me tell you, he is being down to earth. He have more than 100,000 followers on Instagram, so he is just pretty insane. So, like, why you chose masters abroad? Why and why only Canada?
Oh, I come from a Punjabi family, right? No, that's not the reason. The thing is that Canada is a gateway towards US, first of all. So it's like
Mhm,
either you directly go to Silicon Valley or like you take out this route. It's just okay, like right. But the thing is that with Canada, and for me, the thing is that I'm being very honest right now. If you are a developer and you are in India, you are earning pretty insane because you are like the price parity point kicks in, right? You have to spend in rupees and you are earning at a dollar standard. But then again, in lifestyle in India is like way lesser. Even if you are earning a lot, even if you are, let's say, if you have a salary of 1 CR, then also
mhm,
you can't reach that level. You can't get that kind of air because when I shifted from Delhi to Montreal, oh bro,
mhm,
my lungs were blessing me, they were like, oh bro, like you are like now you are consuming pure oxygen. So that thing
mhm,
you can't get with money in India as well, even if you have like best air purifiers in your house, right? So
mhm,
these are the things you can't compromise on. So of course lifestyle is one thing. Then things like let's say the kind of vibe here in Canada, it's like you have freedom, you have a lot of freedom, you can
mhm,
do anything you want. You can live all your fantasies. Then again, the capitalism market, you have to think about money, and I literally love this kind of culture.
mhm,
You can see I don't even have my hair dressed up right now. I just woke up and I just came on the live, and
mhm,
this is how I can go out, and this is how I can do all of my stuff all day. I don't even have to dress up well. People here are so chilled out. They don't judge. There is no moral policing. There is no you don't have to show off anything. Of course dressing up is a part, it shows discipline, but until and unless I'm a developer, I'm doing my stuff, no one cares. So like these are
okay.
some things which
Mhm,
motivated me to come to Canada and like do masters. Of course masters, for me, like doing an official education was not a requirement. The reason is
mhm,
that because I came after my BTech, I just took an year in between. In that, I partnership with a lot of companies for their like,
mhm,
because I'm constantly into the teaching process. I taught web development, I taught machine learning, data structures, and all of these kind of things. So I have never worked for companies. I have always worked with companies. So in the 1 year in between, which was the COVID time, I also worked
mhm,
with a lot of companies, and then I applied for Canada because uh, masters for me is just a gateway to enter to Canada. It's not that there was a requirement to do, because I was not at
mhm.
my career stage where I had to move to senior level. And because normally what people do, masters, why people do is for this thing only. They have to move
Yeah.
to a senior level. Yeah.
But there must be other benefits to moving to Canada, because you could have chosen some different countries like Australia or UK or some other things, but why you chose Canada only?
The other name for Canada is North America, right? So you get the access to America, and even like I am in Montreal, it's just 4 hours away from New York, so I can like any time. Currently, like the visa process is a little bit not that much open because of this COVID thing. But other than that, if I like, let's say, if it would have been a normal time and I have to move to New York, I can apply for a 10-year to and fro visa, and that too, it's pretty easy on a student visa. When you have a student Canadian student visa, it's pretty easy. You get it in like a month or two, and you get like for 10 years to and fro access to New York. You can go there for work, you can go there for enjoying the life, anything you can do. And then New York and like all the other places, you get like you get your the opportunities increase tremendously. Of course, you have opportunities for remote, you have the option for remote jobs any day, but when you are physically present somewhere and looking out for stuff, it's like totally different. The opportunities increase exponentially. So that is the reason for Canada. I never thought about moving to Australia or Germany. Was like, of course, one of my platforms. I even applied for DAD, which is DAAT scholarship, back in like third year when I was in like BTech, but didn't got that one. So of course, like and even like in Canada there is no one scholarship known as MyTax. I didn't even got that, but that didn't stop me from coming to Canada. But like Germany, it was more of like, free education and stuff like that. So didn't got the opportunity, didn't took that chance. But Canada, I applied to like 4 or 5 universities, got into the Concordia one and also Dalhousie, but like chose Concordia and moved here. Yeah.
Okay. So how to apply? Like, what is the process
For a student visa, right?
for the universities or masters?
Okay, so the process is a little. It sounds simple, but there are a lot of intricacies involved in it. So it's just that first you analyze your GPA, which is like your so your BTech CGPA only matters when you are applying for foreign university. Nothing else, nothing other than that. If you want to apply for a foreign university, just make sure from the very first year you are very clear about your goals and you are working towards it, and you are having a really great GPA. That that would really matter a lot, because from the same university people are getting into Concordia universities as well as McGill University. I even applied for McGill University, didn't got into that because I'm not a 9 pointer. I was an 8 pointer, got into Concordia. So that matters a lot. And then your CGPA matters, your IELTS score matters, which is IELTS. It's I don't remember the full form, but it's like it's actually an English as a foreign language test. So you get like 4 sections: reading, writing, speaking, and reading, speaking, and listening. And you just score different bands and all of that. Then you have a cumulative score, and if it is more than 6.5, you are good to go. Uh, so yeah, you just do that, and then you shortlist based on both these things. You shortlist universities that 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 pass the criteria of your CGPA and your IELTS, and also your interest lies in there. Like, because let's say for if you are applying for a tech course, if you are applying for a computer course, you have to see the ranking of universities as well. So there's one ranking known as McLean's ranking, and there is QS rankings. So always search for the rank. And I'm only talking about universities because in Canada there is a difference between university and a college. So colleges are where people go for mainly PGDMs. Okay. Colleges are mainly where people go for PGDMs, like postgraduate diplomas, not for masters. But the value of masters is any day much better than that of PGDM. And of
Yeah,
course,
sure.
when you are choosing a university, always go for a better university in terms of McLean's and QS ranking, and that too according to your CGPA, because it should uh, at the end of the day you have to get selected as well. So always, like when I was building out my list, so I chose around like 7 to 8 university, and ended up playing in like 4 or 5 of them. So the 7 universities, they were distributed like two were the ambitious ones. Like I applied for McMaster's and one more I don't remember, but McMaster's was one of my ambitious one, where I like I wanted to go, right?
Mhm.
And then there were like three of them which were like the normal one, which were like in my range, so Concordia being one of them, Dalhousie being one of them. Then there were like two of them which were like safe universities in which I can get any day, in which if I like apply right now, I can get an offer from them.
Mhm.
So they are just these safe bets.
Okay. And
Mm.
is this IELTS score, is it just a requirement or an eligibility criteria, or universities pick the students basis on the basis of this?
Yeah, so some courses have a strict requirement. Let's say University of Guelph had a requirement that there should be seven bands in your writing, which I had, but I still didn't apply
Mhm.
for University of Guelph. So there are like some criteria, and University of Saskatchewan as well had this criteria that there should be 7.5 as a in listening and reading. They had this foundation that there should be 7.5 bands in IELTS. The thing is that when there are less number of seats, so let's say in University of Saskatchewan, because the course is very cheap and the quality is like super awesome, so
Mhm.
it's like 60 seats and the applicants are like 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000. So in that case they just tight the boundaries so that less people and like better
Mhm.
uh, candidates can flow. So
Mhm.
like let's say there are like 5,000 students and 2,500, let's say, get out of the CGPA thing. Then some people get out of the IELTS thing. So they are like, they are like different membranes. Yeah.
Okay. So you told us two things. One is the CGPA and second is the IELTS. So
Yep.
is GRE also required?
Um, it's better to give GRE, but it's not required. It's not required. I didn't give it.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Any other things uh, out of these three?
I told you Canada is very simple. So no, nothing other than these two. It's just that you
Okay.
require these two things. Yeah.
And we
Just
need to
that.
write some essays and SOPs and purpose of
Yeah,
statements.
SOP is crucial. SOP is very crucial, but that's the part of your college application. It's not a requirement. It's
Mhm.
like when you apply, so you have to. So it's like the it can be named as a letter of intent or a statement of purpose or like a
Mhm.
cover letter or something like that. So it's different for all the universities, and they are like clearly mentioned that when you apply. So let's say. For me, for Concordia University, it was like three paragraphs of like 200 words. Just you have to explain like what you have done in past and why you are a good
Mhm.
candidate for this program. And you just have to show your achievements. You just have to show your research work and stuff like that, and you are good to go. So, and of course, like I would recommend, even if you are coming for okay, one more interesting point, there are like two kinds of programs when you talk about masters. They are like a
Mhm.
research based and a coursework. So right now I was
Mhm.
only talking about the course based program, which was which I took personally, because I was not, I did research, but I was not much interested that I'll do like full time research. Of course, interest is like subjective thing. This is very much subjective, and it depends from person to person. It's like I love bananas and you love apples, right? So
Mhm.
and there's no harm in like getting any of those. There's not much of difference. Even in the value itself there is not much difference. It's just that when you are doing thesis you get paid, you get stipend from your professor, but in coursework there's nothing like that. But coursework is much easier. If you want a job at the end of the day, then coursework is your call, because if you are doing research you can't focus on your interview preparation and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
But if you are doing a coursework, like right now I'm doing it, I just have two courses, and I have a lot of time for my other things, for doing other stuff which I normally do.
Mhm.
So these are like just the choices. But when you are like applying for research, you need to have a lot of research papers. So one of my friends who's in McGill University, he lives with me. He had like what 16 to 17 research papers, and that's how he
Oh,
got into yeah. So you have to have like these much, and it's not about the quantity; it's about quality as well. So one of my other friends who's in McGill, she's doing around like I think biotech or something like that. She has like three or four papers, but all of them are in
Mm-hmm.
like Springer or IEEE. So they are like very much renowned. And one of our
Mm-hmm.
papers is like the most downloaded one in like in recent times. Even like I
Oh,
guess
that's good.
yeah, Springer quoted that on their Twitter. So you need to have achievements like that in that area. But if you are applying for a coursework as well, you can have like three to four decent papers. I had like a paper in IGAC something. It was an international
Mm-hmm.
journal, but with not with a great index. But still, like I had three or four of them, and I think that has an impact on your overall profile. That it tells that the person was doing projects, he or she was doing
Mm-hmm.
internships, uh, as well as research. So it's like more at the end of the day, it's all about trust, right? University should trust you that if this guy or girl comes in our university, he or she should not drown the name of our university, right? He or she should perform
Mm-hmm.
like really well, and that's all they want, right?
Okay, and like for the application process, internships or research work, what should a student do? Like, which has more value for the universities to grant them the admission?
See, all of these things boil down to like how you build your SOP, right? So when we talk about like research or internships, like which should be our more focus, then if you're going for MS, then of course, which is Master of Science. If you're going for that, which is like a research based program, then of
Mm-hmm.
course you have to have great research papers. And of course you have to have great research papers, and at the same time you have to document them in your SOP really well. A lot of people mistake on this, that they don't write all of these things in SOP, which is the statement of purpose or letter of intent, whatever it is. You should
Mm-hmm.
document that really really well. It should be clearly understandable in like first go itself, in the first read itself. It should be clearly understandable, like what you have done, how you have done, what hurdles you face, and what achievements you got after like doing all of that
Mm-hmm.
research for MSc. And for MIng, it's like you create a blend of all these things, like your internships, your experience, your for me it was like, because I have won like 3 to 4 hackathons as well, so I wrote a lot about them. Then one of my hackathon, I got to work with people from University College of London, Dublin, so I really
Mm-hmm.
highlighted that in bold, like that I worked with these so and so people. So like yeah, you it's just that you have to sell yourself in your SOP, right? So at the end of the day, if you are going for an image, you need to create a blend of all of these things. And if you are going for a Master of Science, you just have to stick to the research. Because when you tell about like, because let's say you are talking about an internship in a company, right? As a developer, as an let's say as an SD intern, right? So your
Mm-hmm.
researcher won't have much effect if you are working in, let's say, an IIT as a research intern. That would be much better for MS. I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about Master of Science, not as a Master of Engineering. So these
Mm-hmm.
things you have to think from the perspective of the on the other side of the table, right? You have to think like how your professor will think when he or she reads the application.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. And how is the Canadian teaching methodology? Like, is it somewhat different from what we have in India?
Yep, of course. It's like very much different. So like let's say right now I have two courses.
Mm-hmm.
So one is operating system security and another one is cryptography. So the thing is that it's like 50% theory and 50% practical. The theory
Mm-hmm.
part, I'd say it is exactly same as it was back in India. But the thing is that teachers here have the choice to change the course, to change the syllabus. Let's say a teacher is taking a course in winter, which is like the January. So he
Mm-hmm.
or she has whole right as what there should be in the course and what there should not be in the course. Let's say 2G technology is now outdated, right? So he will just skip that part and introduce 6G or 5G, right? He'll just
Mm-hmm.
put that, and he'll deliver us the latest content. So that what I really like about these universities, that they don't teach
Yeah.
outdated stuff, not from the 90s, not from the 80s. Just we are
Mm-hmm.
just BTech back in India. It was not BTech. It was BTech in history. I don't know. Like it was just all about
Yeah. True.
they did that. It was used to happen like that, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Teach us what will happen and what is going to happen, right? That is what I think here it is. And also, when we talk about like 50% practical part, it's like very much practical, because let's say right now I'm studying one subject which is like operating system security. So in that part, we are made a group of 8 people who are divided into four and four, like different subgroups, and then 4 people have to find vulnerabilities in the Android operating system, and 4 people
Mhm.
have to defend those vulnerabilities. So it's like what you are studying, you are also getting that hands on, and like very much hands on. Like we are literally
Yeah,
coding
that's
stuff, we
great.
are literally doing attacks on Android OS and stuff like that. So like and this is just my first semester, so it's introduction to operating system security. I don't know what will
Mhm.
happen in advanced things, because like next semester I'm taking a course on blockchain. So I'll get to know a lot about like how they teach the futuristic and like the present day technologies as well. So
Mhm.
maybe I could answer you better that then. But like right now, what my implications are, like that that they are like the teaching system is much better than what I used to have back in India.
Okay. And how many hours in a week is required from your side to put into your studies? I'm talking about just the university studies.
Oh, right now it's more of like online stuff. So I don't have to attend classes because there is no attendance system as well. So
Okay.
it's like I watch. If let's say if I miss lectures for like 2 to 3 weeks, I can cover them up in like a day or two itself. Because
Oh, that is so great.
yeah, because it's like I just play those videos on like 2x, and I
Mhm.
get to cover a lot of stuff in like very less time. But again, when from next semester it will be like in-person classes, so you have to go for classes, and the classes are like what,
Mhm.
2 to 2.5 hours. So a lot of time will be used in sitting in the classes. But
Mhm.
I think that has its own essence. You get to
Yeah.
network with a lot of people, because right now I get to network with like my roommates' friends, my
Mhm.
friends, the place where I go for work and stuff like that. But once you are in like classroom, you get to know a lot of people in your class itself, and so but right now it's like complete online. It's like
Mhm.
you two of my course I've taken like two courses, and both of them are like online. The classes normally are on like Mondays and Fridays. So let's say if we talk about an ideal student, not about me, so how much time he or she would be spending a week would be, let's say 2.5 hours and 2.5 hours, like 5 hours for classes, and then 2 hours for labs, so it's like 7 hours. And then you can say like 3 to 4 hours for assignments and projects. So it's like 11 to 12 hours in a week.
So, okay. So
Yeah.
it means like we get a lot of time to actually do other things out of the curriculum.
Well, again, very much subjective. The reason is when you move to a new place, you have to
Mhm.
find your home. You have to do a lot of things, and you have to understand that there are a lot of cultural shifts as well. Not even like cultural shifts, but let's say the complete banking system has changed, right?
Mhm.
Everything is changed here. And even you are independent, right? You have to cook your own food. You don't have mother, you'll say mummy ye bana
Mhm.
do, and like she'll cook. You have to cook your own food. First you have to learn cooking, right? For me it was very much new, because I don't know cooking at all. I didn't knew, and now I like it's been 2 months and now I can cook things. But I have to learn cooking. I have to do my clothes, do my laundry. I had to clean my own room myself. So a lot of time goes into that as well. And cooking is the I think the cooking is the major part of the day. The reason is you have to cook, you have to clean, you have to eat yourself, everything on your own. So other than classes, there are like daily chores. Then you have to go for grocery on your own, right?
Mhm.
So these things like take a lot of time as well. And it's just that I'm enjoying all of this, because for me, see, I come from a background where I haven't lived apart from my family for like not for a
Yeah.
long time. I just occasional trips, nothing other than that. Never been to a
Mhm.
hostel, never been to a another place or something like that. Not even like if I would have been doing a job back in India, I would have gone to Bangalore or stuff like that. So I would have experienced that thing. But I didn't even got to experience like that era. So just coming directly, just living independent life. I'm literally like enjoying these struggles and things like that. But
Mhm.
a lot of time goes into all of these daily chores, and then you have to study at the same time. You have to manage your part-time stuff. You have to manage your budget yourself. So
Mhm.
all of these things take a lot of time. And then of course, when you are in a place like Montreal, which is like a party hub, right? And
Mhm.
like it's comparable to LV, Las Vegas. So you are
Mhm.
like, place like this, you have to enjoy, you have to see stuff. And when you are in a new place, you tend to get to a lot of these attractions as well. Like let's say there is a place like Montreal, which is like a
Mhm.
hill. And I even went to trekking and all of this stuff. Like, that's a part of life, right? You have to sometimes rejuvenate yourself.
Yeah.
So uh, so all of these things take a lot of time.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned about part-time jobs. So what are different part-time jobs student usually do? What is the work culture in these part-time jobs, and what is the pay like?
Okay, so this is a video I had to record any day, but anyhow, I'll be. So see, the blueprint I have taken out of from like my last 2 months is that when you talk about part times, the thing is, when you move to a new place, the easiest thing you can get is a labor. The easiest thing
Mhm.
you can do is a pink collar job. Well, over here it's not like pink collar or white collar. It's like equal
Mhm.
respect for any job you do out there. uh, and wages are also like comparable. Let's say a developer is earning like what, 20 $25 per hour. An electrician will also be earning even like more, because it's
Yeah,
like these things are very rare here.
we're in pretty much demand,
Yeah, demand and like
and
supply is
supply
very
is
less.
less.
Supply is less, so you get so the wages of course like increase.
Mhm.
But there are like some jobs which are like very low barrier. Let's say working in a warehouse, working as a cashier in like Tim Hortons. Or Tim Hortons is actually like cafe coffee day of here.
Mhm.
So Tim Hortons, Walmart, or like a product sorter, which is like a picker packer. So all of
Mhm.
these things are very low barrier, which is like you give your resume and they'll select you. So when you just come here, when you just land here, this is the best thing you can do. Because now what will happen is, when you spend any amount of dollar, you'll start converting it into Indian rupees. You'll start doing into 60. And that's the worst thing anyone can do. Because I went to Walmart and I was shopping some stuff. I bought a cauliflower, one flower of
Mhm.
cauliflower, like one piece, and it was like $6. And I was like, okay, 6 into 60 is 360. Oh shit, should I buy it or not? So, but when you are like, when you have a part time, you are like, oh, that's like half a salary of my half of my 1 hour. Like it's just half hours of work.
Mhm.
Okay, I can buy it. So that price parity points kicks in. And as soon as you
Mhm.
land here, you just start anywhere, you get a job. Let's say it's a cashier, it's in Tim Hortons, it's even a dishwasher. I even started like a dishwasher. I
Mhm.
myself did dishes and stuff like that. And dishwasher here is just, you take dishes and put that in a machine, and machine does
Yeah.
itself the work. And you're just standing there, you're just pressing buttons.
Mhm.
So it's not much of a hurdle. But getting, and my major concern was getting a tech part-time job.
Mhm.
Getting a part-time job in a field I like, in a field I love. Let's say growth hacking, or let's say technology, as a developer. And me coming
Mhm.
from a hardcore development background, like I can build apps, I can build websites, I can do machine learning stuff, I can do like anything you put on me, I can do. uh, so I started looking out for tech jobs. In one of my videos I have recorded it, I have not edited it. I say that, I'm applying for Walmart and all of these stuff, but I can get a tech part time any day. But that
Mhm.
was like 2 months ago, and that was my misconception. Because the thing is, getting a tech part time is like very difficult over here. the
Yeah, sure.
the reason is, like, let's say you are, because as a part time student you only get 20 hours legally. You only get 20
Mhm.
hours to work. Now, let's say if I have company, right, I won't employ people who are working on part time, because of course the wage will be low. But the problem is, my development route will be very
Process would
slow.
be slower.
Would be
Yeah.
very slow. Because let's say a person is coming for 3 days. Let's say he works for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. and after Wednesday he'll come next Monday. So like
Yeah.
whatever happened in like 4 days in between, he's not available. So that's a huge
Mhm.
problem. So a lot of companies don't allow for like part-time work. Even like I gave a lot of interviews, I cleared them, and then I told that I can only work for part-time, and they were like, oh no, you are a really good candidate, but we can't hire you because you're not a full-time employee, and you are not even taking this as an internship, because internship over here is like you work as free. They demand that when you are doing an internship, they'll give you certificate, they'll give you everything, but you work for free. uh, I don't know
Basically
what the thing
unpaid
is.
interns.
Unpaid interns, like, yeah, I haven't found any good paid internships over here. Of course, if it's not from a company like Microsoft or something like that, if it's not from
Mhm.
a tech giant, if it's from a startup, it's an unpaid internship. That's the problem here. And even if it's a paid internship, I even applied for a paid internship from a startup. The main demand was that you should know
40
French.
hours a week.
No, you should know
Okay, okay.
French. You should know French, which, because this is Montreal. So Montreal is
Mhm.
the
Yeah, the
Montreal is
French part.
French part, like complete French.
Mhm.
In when you're in Montreal, you can talk in English, but the looks you get, it's like pathetic. But again, like, of course, it's a European capital of Canada, so it's like very much
Mhm.
expected. So French thing is a big hurdle, and then you need to be a Canadian citizen for like paid internships of for these startups, because what happens is these startups don't have funding, and they get funded by Government of Canada, Government of Quebec,
Mhm.
to be very precise. And Government of Quebec has this foundation, has this criteria that all the employees should be Canadian citizens. So it's like, you have to understand that they are also, that they want to employ you, but they can't, because they don't have funds, and the funds coming from
Mhm.
Government of Quebec, and Government of Quebec wants Canadian citizens. uh, but yeah, and I think like that is the part, because one thing I have felt in Canada as well, Canada, is that all the hype, it's not worth it. Canada has, even like for banking sector, like let's say we are doing transactions
Mhm.
get processed in a day or two. In India it gets in like a minute, or like the next time, like I'll send you money, and the next moment you'll get it in your bank, right? So the tech part is not well developed in Canada, but that opens a lot of opportunities as well. That there are a lot of
Mhm.
improvements needed over here, and people can do a lot of stuff. So that's why I call it
Sure, sure.
a land of opportunities, because 50% of Canada is not yet made for living. You see the map,
Mhm.
50% of
Sure, sure.
Canada is not yet, you can't live over there. So it's like a land of opportunities. There are a lot of stuff you can do here.
Yeah, sure.
And like, even like when you are not in Montreal, let's say you are on the Ontario side or something like that, even tech jobs, even tech part-times, getting a tech part-time is like very difficult. I've talked to a lot of my friends, and they say that of
Mhm.
course you can any day have on-campus jobs, but on-campus jobs, even like I applied for on-campus jobs, the thing is that they pay a little less, very less in fact. I was earning like $16 an hour, and then they were paying like $8 an hour. So it's like they pay a little less, but then again you get to work on things you really love, because I was getting a position of like Python developer and something like that. So on campus you get tech jobs, and even like when you are working on campus, there is no foundation for time, so you can work more than
Mhm.
20 hours as well. There's no foundation
Okay,
for
okay.
that. Yeah. So if you have like opportunity, and online on campus jobs, they come very rare. Seldom you'll find any opportunity
Mhm.
for an on campus job. But and even like once you find it, there are a lot of competition for on campus. There are like
Mhm.
1 to 2 positions, and like 50 to 60 candidates who are like of your level, who are like
Mhm.
because they are all let's say for me in Concordia
Yeah.
University, they are all Concordians, and they have all went through those application process with, they have went through all those filters from which I went through. So they're like
Yeah.
so it's like really cutthroat competition. So on campus is a little bit difficult, but once you get it, it's like it's great for you. um,
Just to make it clear for Indian students, on campus here does not mean the on campus opportunities which you get in the college. It is the TA positions or the invigilation jobs which you do in the university, right?
Yep, exactly. So it's like it can be a TA, let's say a teaching assistant. It can be a marker. Marker is like the ones who check the exams.
Mhm.
It can be um, in IITS, which is like the technical support system, so international
Mhm.
technical support system, where you help teachers in because here the systems are like very much advanced. When teacher are teaching, they have like two screens, the complete audio system. They have
Mhm.
access to all the computers and stuff like that. So there is a like complete technical support system sitting behind a teacher, who
Mhm.
helps them in like doing all of that stuff, like where the audio will come and where the audio will go from. So these kind of jobs also you can get. So on
Okay.
campus involves a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so this was about the part-time jobs, but what about the full-time software engineering jobs? How is the hiring done in Canada for the software
Oh,
engineers?
it's very similar to how it is done in India. If you have been through an interview process in India, it's like similar. All
Mhm.
the seniors I have talked to, I have like a lot of contacts in Canada in different parts. I have people who are in London, Ontario, who are in Alberta. One of my college seniors in uh, he has passed out from Western University, so he's working there. So I've talked to a lot of people. First thing, the lack of opportunities in part-time jobs is overcome by full-time jobs. There are a lot of full-time jobs, and once you are graduated, you get jobs pretty easily. It's just
Mhm.
that you need to understand, like, see, the interview process is very much similar to how it happened in India. It's just that data structures, right? You
Mhm.
get to do data structures and you get a job. But again, it's like you know you do data structures, it's like what strata you are targeting. Either you're targeting
Mhm.
fan company, you are targeting a normal development sort of startup. For me, back when I was in India, I didn't like these tech giants. Now I think
Mhm.
I will be targeting the tech giants moving on in future. But of course, back in India, I was more of that dynamic guy, who loved the uh,
Mhm.
uh,
The
dynamic work,
development side of the you.
the development side, as well as the high amount of work in like very less time. You have to complete the
Mhm.
deadlines and stuff like that, and you get to see what you are building. People are using 10 to 10
Mhm.
10,000 1 lakh people are using and stuff like that. So back when you are targeting those jobs, a little bit of data structure is good, and then you have to focus on development part. There will be
Yeah,
rounds, there
yeah.
will be like 3 to 4 rounds in like development itself. Let's say you're targeting web development. You are talking about React JS, Next.js, Node.js, all of this stack, MERN stack and stuff. So you'll get to see interviews where you'll be asked questions related to JavaScript. You'll be asked questions related to React itself from the documentation part. So the complete, that interview process is like very much similar. It's like almost same. And I would say even like in India, because right now at this point of time we have a like lots and lots of competition in India. It's like everyone is super talented. Every other guy I see, from tier 3, tier 2 universities, they are like doing a
Mhm.
lot of stuff. I don't know,
Yeah,
everyone is like 5-star code chef guy.
yeah,
so
sure.
so competition is a lot in India. So I think the interview processes over here should be much easier, because over here I don't see a lot of people, of that level. Even like
Mhm.
in Concordia University, we have a group where every Friday we practice data structures. And when I sit with them, I really feel, because see, I did data structures 5 years ago, and from like last
Mhm.
5 years I haven't even like touched C++ or like complete like sat
Mhm.
and did lead code or code shift. But still I am able to where they get stuck, I'm able to tell them logics and like help them out. So I think like getting like interviews over here should not be much harder. They are like,
Mhm.
if you are coming from India and if you are given interviews over there and if you have been selected, you'll get a job pretty easily. Because when
Mhm.
I was in India, I gave around like 60 to 70 interviews. They were not of this DSA part, not of this competitive stuff. They're like much more towards development, like Next.js and React and
Mhm.
React Native. And I was able to get selected in like 10 to 15 companies. So now I'm pretty much confident because the other day I was attending an event, and it was on Next.js. Next.js is like the topmost, hottest technology you can see in like web development. It's like the cutting edge. Uh, the host who was giving the session, right? He was
Mhm.
3 years experienced in in he was like three he was working from like last 3 years in a company who was doing their website on Next.js, and he got stuck at a few points, and I stood up and told him, you can use this and this and this and this. Even like I have like I'm doing Next.js from like last 1.5 years. So I think that the tech part, the people over here, they are like not much advanced. When we talk about in India, we have like really super awesome developers, and that causes a
Mhm.
lot of competition as well. So like you have like a lot of, I think in India, interviewers also have developed this sense that they have to ask difficult questions. So it's
Yeah.
like when I see the coding rounds in India, they're like very much difficult when I
Yeah.
compare them from like Canada or like US. It's like what was that law? I'm forgetting the name, but it's like a herd mentality. The IQ of complete herd is increasing, so the level
Mhm.
increases. It's by the nature. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, how much can we earn as a software engineer in Canada? Let's talk about all type of companies, like these low startups and mid-level startups, and then the FANG companies.
See, I myself don't have a lot of idea about like the salary ranges because I don't focus much on these things because see,
Mhm.
salary over here is okay. See, salary over here is it's like it's pretty much comparable. There is not much gap. When you I won't go right now into the software thing itself. Let's say we compare
Mhm.
uh, two different niches because I come from an area because my brother is a marketer. He's also into growth. So and he's like what salary I can get if I come there. He just asked me if I come there, like what salary I can get in marketing. And the other day I was researching about that, and the thing is that in India you don't get, like, let's say a marketer is earning a 5 lakh 5 LPA, uh,
Mhm.
and developers, they start their salary from like 11, 10, 12 LPA, right?
Yeah, sure.
So the amount of respect a marketer and a developer gets in India, it's like very much different. But over
Yeah.
here in Canada, it's like equal. If let's say starting salary for a marketer is like 50,000 or $60,000 in a year, it would be similar for a developer as well. There's not much gap.
Mhm.
And even the highest point, let's say if a marketer is employed in a FANG company and a developer is employed in a FANG company, they will be like earning comparable. So there is not
Mhm.
much difference, and the same goes for software engineers and different strata as well. So the lowest I have encountered is like 40 to 45,000. The people who I have talked to, I don't think like anyone goes beyond that, like under 40
Mhm.
45,000 is the least. And for highest salary, you can even aim to like 120K 125K. That's the highest salary. I think Amazon is the one who pays like highest salary to SDEs. Don't remember like what the exact quote is, but I think Amazon is the dream salary for a person.
So let's now talk about the expenses. How much investment is needed, like
Mhm.
for the tuition fee and all of the other stuff?
See, it really depends on like which province are you targeting, which like
Mhm.
let's say if you are coming to Montreal, and there is difference in expenses in Ontario, in Montreal, in Nova Scotia, in Winnipeg, and if you go to like places like Yukon, which like really people don't go. So there are like uh, because here the thing is that there is no concept of MRP. So let's say if you are getting a bread in Ontario for $6, you'll get the same bread for in Montreal for $4, and the same
Mhm.
bread will cost $3 in Nova Scotia. You get. So, and again, the with this point, the hourly wage also changes drastically. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say in Ontario, I guess it's 14 or $15. Here in Montreal, it's $13.5. This is the minimum wage. Beyond this, like no one
Mm-hmm.
can go. So like no company over here can pay you $12 or something like that. They have to stick to minimum. Uh, and then in like Nova Scotia, because one of my friends is over there, so he tells me it's like around $13 is the minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
So that thing is there. uh, but like when you talk about university fees, because that's the main thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So like Concordia, it charges around like $23,000, I think. That's even I don't remember the fees, but yeah, it's like 23,000 or like something like that. So there are universities like University of Victoria, which is like UVic, Western University. They are the premium universities. They have
Mm-hmm.
very high fees. So it's just your parameters. So when you are shortlisting, you have to keep in mind that you have to have a column for budget as well, like how much amount you have right now and how much you can take it as a loan, because loan repayment is also not a big deal. So once you come here and you start saving and you start earning with from part time as well, you can send money back to your home country, and then your family can repay the loan. A lot of my
Mm-hmm.
friends are doing that. A lot of my seniors have done that. So one of my senior took around like 8 lakhs of loan. That was the amount he was getting short of, and within a year, even like living like very lavishly, he just repaid the loan. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not much of a deal. Even like one of my friends over here in Montreal right now has sent around like $1,500 in just 2 months. What is it, like
Mm-hmm.
75,000 to 1 lakh rupees? He has already sent back his home. So it's just that you can easily you know uh, you can easily repay your loan, even if you have a little bit money crunch. You can do
Mm-hmm.
that. Because
Okay. And
yeah, because like i
yeah,
see
yeah, go on.
people i see people coming from all these stratas. Like I see people who come from like who have like Audi in their house back in India, and who even don't have a Wagoner. I have
Mm-hmm.
friends from like all these strata, studying in same program, studying in same university. So it's not of an issue.
Mm-hmm. And what are the monthly expenses of groceries and other stuff which we might be having?
So it's like it really depends a lot. Is it that personal choices are also there? Because like right now I am living with like four other people who share expenses. So the more people you have, the lesser the amount
Mm-hmm.
becomes. Because like whenever we go to Walmart or like Costco, it's like we shop for around like $300 to $400, and it gets divided into like four people. So it's like 100 to $120 uh, a month of like grocery expenses. Then there is like one time your rent, right? So my rent is like $250. So that thing. Then you have your Opus card. Opus is actually you can call it as a metro card, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because in Montreal, metro is the best way you can travel. You don't even need to have a car here. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that because from like 2 minutes walking distance, there is a metro, and metro is just similar to what we had in Delhi. It's like orange line, green line, all of those lines are over here, yellow line and stuff like that. And when I'm standing online on like Greek and Godia, it's a station over here, and we go to like Lionel Gru. On Lionel Gru station, I feel like I'm on Kashmiri Gate. It's like it's like very similar. So of course, like the architecture, because Montreal is known for its art. So architecture is like really commendable. It's not like the architecture is very much different, but you have like complete network
Mm-hmm.
of metro. So $54 is like what monthly recharge of an Opus card is. And then you have like your data, your SIM connection, your all of that stuff. It's like around $40-50 of that. So, but like when you compare it with your what you are earning from your part time. Let's say I'm earning like $15 on my part time, and I'm doing it for like 20 hours. So what is it, like 200, and it's like $300 a week, $600 for 2 weeks, because you get bi-weekly checks,
Mm-hmm.
or like bi-weekly payments, and like $1,200 a month. And what I spend is like around 900 to 800, even when I live, like when we go out for eating like 3 to 4 times a week. I'm talking about like that kind of thing. So you
Mhm.
tend to save around like 300 to $400 even without doing anything, even without making a budget. I don't even make a budget right now. So pretty
Okay.
chill. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So my last question on the expenses is: do you think this much investment is worth? Because the first is the tuition fee, then the other expenses might be having, then 2 year income in India. Uh, that plays a big role, I think.
See, it's a personal choice, I would say. In the very starting, I told you that the lifestyle you will get in India, even if you are
Mhm.
earning like one CR, it won't be comparable to what you get in Canada. The purity, not in the terms of only air, but in terms of vegetables, in terms of, because here you won't find how do I even say it? Like let's say the quality of vegetables I used to eat in India, they were like really cheap. The quality I'm eating here is like awesome. When you eat like an apple, even like my family used to have apples. Like, I'm just talking about like one example, very very basic one. uh, let's talk about apples only. So even if you buy it from like very premium store in India, like let's say a 200 rupees kilo apples, right? They won't be
Mhm.
comparable to what you'll get normally in like any convenience store in Canada. The purity is you feel the essence of purity here in Canada. So that is worth all the effort. And then again, there are good and bad points everywhere. But
Mhm.
of course, like all of this, I think it's worth it. For me, it's worth it. But the thing is that tuition fee and other expenses, you can recover all of that in just a very short span of time. And then all that you'll be earning extra will be your savings and your investments.
Mhm.
Plus, of course, like you are hurting your 2 year income, because let's say someone is earning around like 20 lpa, back in India, and he's getting around like let's say in hand he's getting around 1 lpa, 1 lakh per month.
Per month.
So yeah, it's like around like 12 lakh he's having on a loss, and it's like 24 lakh. But again, when you start earning over here and start saving and start sending back to India, you'll do everything into 60. So it will be way way way
Mhm.
more than what you'll be getting in like those 2 years.
Okay, sure. So the last question for this video is how to get the PR, the process and the requirement.
Oh, the main question, right? See, yeah, the permanent residency is something which happens automatically if you are into university, if you are doing everything, if you are doing everything in a in a in a streamlined process, if you don't deviate even a little bit. What I mean by this is, let's say you are doing everything legally, you are doing everything according to how it should be done. You are studying well, you are doing your part time well, you are living here according to the rules, you are not doing anything illegal, right? PR will happen eventually. You just have to study for 2 years. You have to work for 1 year, 1 or 1.5 year, depends where you are, like which province you are in. Even like in AIP provinces, which are like Atlantic provinces, like Nova Scotia and like all of these, um, Manitoba and all of these provinces, which are like near to Atlantic. So you get like PR in like 2.5 years, like 2 years of study, half years of work, and you can file PR. So it just depends on like what your priority is. If you want a late PR but a better job, like right now I'm in Montreal. So in Montreal, the thing is you need to learn French to get PR. Like you need to give
Mhm.
DELF paper, DELF exam. DELF is just like IELTS but in French. So
Mhm.
and even like the best thing about Montreal is you get paid for learning French
Yeah.
as well. So a lot of my roommates are like doing this, like my housemates are doing this. I'm not doing this right now because I thought, like, let's first semester, let's just enjoy life, and from next
Mhm.
semester I have already like enrolled for MIFI. MIFI is the organization which like does all of that. So
Mhm.
from like next semester I'll be learning French as well. So you get paid like $25 per day, which is like 3 hours. But it's good, and it's other than your sin. It's other than your 20 hours. So that's also
Oh, that's great.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
My
Plus, you
my
learn a new language, and
yeah,
that's super awesome.
you get to learn a new language, you get to learn the essence of the French culture as well. It's like it's really awesome,
Mhm.
and you get to earn a lot. Other than your 20 hours, you get to learn, you get to earn as well. So it's good. It's win-win. So yeah, of course, like peer process in Montreal. If like some people tend to move from Montreal to places like Ontario or Nova Scotia or like other places as well. The thing is that they find the French to be a little difficult. It's just personal preferences, right? And and even like in some cases, like let's say I'm in tech and I get a really good job in Ontario, I'll move to Ontario. It's not an issue.
Mhm.
Uh, let's say you'll get a PR in 1 year over here. After studies, you get a PR in 1 year in Montreal. Y- When you move to Ontario, you get it in 2 years. It's not much of a big deal.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's pretty much simple.
So this is the end of the video, guys. Thanks a lot, Jasneet, for coming here and guiding the audience. And this actually means a lot. This means a lot. Any last tips you have for the audience?
Nothing. Just live your life, buddy. It's like when you move to a new place. I must tell you that the complete because I come from a third country. When I come to
Mhm.
Canada, it was like from Egypt. We came via Egypt, Cairo, and
Mhm.
my life completely changed. I'll say I grew 4 to 5 years. I move ahead 4 to 5 years in those like 4 to 5 days itself. So one day was like 1 year. I learned a lot. I was back in India. I really think I was so naive. I was, and it's just that it's about time, right? You When I was in
Mhm.
India, I was doing no regrets, but when I was in India, I was doing my best over there. But as soon as I moved from like different oceans covering and in Canada, it's like completely different vibe. You get to learn a lot, you get to see a lot of things, you get to enjoy life at its peak.
Thanks a lot again, Jasneet.
Yeah, thank you for doing this.